Welcome back to the channel. This is our second video and we're going to pick up where we left off from the last time. I hope you managed to install Fedora Linux on your machine as a virtual machine. If not, you can always refer back to that video and just go through it slowly. Today I want us to just talk about the terminal a bit and just go over some of the details that you're expected to know when it comes to dealing with a terminal. For example, who the user is, the default settings for a terminal, things like that. As you can see, I've changed my spin from LXQT because it was giving me a bit of issues. Right now I'm using XFCE. It's about the same. I was just having a bit of issues with compatibility, but yeah, since it should be okay. Now, if you've installed the GNOME desktop manager, you can open your terminal by hitting the Windows key on your laptop or rather on your keyboard, and type terminal. It'll give you the icon and you can click on it. For me, it normally comes installed, so on XFCE usually you can find it on this hotbar here, and once you click on it, it'll open for you the terminal, as you can see. So basically, every time you open a terminal, this is what you will get. It's just a black screen. I've actually changed the background so that you can see through it, just for aesthetic purposes. But normally it's a black screen. The colors are not very nice, and you can make the changes in the preferences. Most terminals will allow you to change the appearance and the colors, the font size. Basically everything that you want to change can be done here for most shells. For most terminals. Right now I've just said shell and terminal, and there's a difference actually between the two, but they're so closely integrated to each other that one cannot quite exist without the other, at least not fully. More on that a bit later. For now, when you do open your terminal window, it'll give you the command prompt. This is a command prompt, and a command prompt basically tells you where you can start typing your commands, which is there. Before where you can type, you have the login user. That's what this $sign means. This basically indicates the level of privilege that I have on the computer in terms of what I can and can't do. For example, I can create files, but I cannot edit some configuration files that are more sensitive. So basically, think of it as an average user, like a user who cannot change the system meaningfully. Let me say that. The alternative to this is the root user. Let me just quickly show you how it looks like. I'll type in my password, and as you can see, the root user has a pound symbol. A hashtag, not pound. The hashtag symbol, it's known for other reasons, but in terms of Linux and shells and terminals, it means root. Now, a root user is the most powerful user on any computer. They can basically change everything to do with that computer, and in fact, they can actually even destroy it if they so choose to. So it's full privileges, full permissions, full everything. You can basically change anything you want on the computer. So when you use the root user, please do be careful, because you can do some permanent damage to the installation and you have to start over again. So now we were here, and now we'll go to the next one, which is this one. This is where we are in terms of our location on the computer. Or rather, let me just say that if you type present working directory, it will show you where you are, which is the home root folder. If I should exit from here. Yes, so as you can see, this symbol means this. This is where we are this is the default of where we are logged into. Now, if you change this, for example, if you go into a folder like let's say desktop, you can see it's changed to desktop. So this is where we currently are now. So whenever you see this symbol, just know that it's the default opening, the default opening location of the shell, basically, which can be changed. Yes, then now after Now the next thing is the name of the machine. That's very basic. Every machine has to have a name, at least on a network, so that you can identify what is what. If they all had the same name, you'd have issues in terms of logging into the right thing. You have to rely maybe on the IP for something like that. But basically, every machine requires a name. It's a host name. Like, what is the name of the computer? You can make it as unique as you want. It doesn't have to be the name of the actual installation, but purposes did not require me to change the name for this installation. Now the next thing is the user. The user, like the one that you created when you are logging in. As you can see, this is what my name is, and if you do change into the root, you'll see that this is the user. So that's basically it. There's nothing more in terms of the login prompt. Sorry, what is it? It's the command prompt. Let me just call it that. Okay, so you see me typing in commands like cd and ls and all that. Now ls, these commands, some are called shell built-in commands, meaning that the base shell that you're using will have these commands installed. Then we have the actual now Linux commands, the ones that now are used basically for everything on the terminal. The shell built-ins are not many. Like cd is a shell built-in, because if you do man cd, I think it says so somewhere here, h built-in command. So built-in commands are basically to just get you going in terms of when using the terminal, because without them it's very hard to use a shell effectively, meaning that there's some shells that can lack these shell built-ins because they were just not installed, or they're not made with that in mind for that shell. If you do the same for ls, you'll find that ls, I think it's not a built-in, I think it's a shell command. Yes, I think it's a shell command. So let's just step back a bit. There's a terminal and there's a shell. Now think the two are the same actually when you think about it, because one technically cannot exist without the other. Like, they both work together hand in hand. But a terminal is a program, and a shell runs within that terminal. I'll repeat, a terminal is a program, and a shell runs inside that terminal, meaning that you can have different shells in a terminal. So you can have like bash, which is what we're currently using. There's one that I personally use, is called ZSH, and another one is called fish. I've installed fish on this for demonstration purposes, which I'll come into in a bit. Now, a terminal is how human beings interact with computers, generally speaking. Like, there are two main interfaces for computers. The terminal, which is a terminal user interface, and a graphical user interface, which is now what the mouse was built for. So with the mouse, you can like click on stuff, you can drag things around, and you can do all sorts of things with it. Now, between the two, I can tell you that the terminal wins hands down. Any like, it can do things that a mouse simply cannot do. Like, even the most basic things that you can do on a terminal, a mouse can never really come close to doing. And we'll get into that as we go along, because that's the purpose of actually this channel, like to help you develop the skills on the terminal that you need. So let me just quickly open a file here that I don't think I know that I need a cat. Cat is a program for reading files. It's just for quick reading of files. Okay, yeah, so let's just start with this. So when you think of a terminal and the human being, this is basically what happens. The human here will type commands using the keyboard, as I've been doing throughout. Those commands, when you press enter, are sent into the computer, into the kernel, the Linux kernel, and instructions executed. Like, this command means this, so do this, and provide feedback to the human's monitor so that he can see. And upon seeing the feedback, he'll decide that maybe I want to change directory into the pictures. So you'll type another command, and it'll change the directory. So what you do is, this loop is what using the terminal is all about. Like, you'll keep going round and round here, like over and over again, because that's what it was built for. Now, as you go along, you might come across some information like the shell is a command line program, and it's a language, that's why I was saying that both of these things, like the shell and the terminal, work together. But the shell, the let's say bash, for example, bash can be run on the command line as we're doing, and it can also be a programming language, meaning that you can write programs in bash, and that's called scripting. But scripting these days, I think, is more of programming than just, it's more programming, basically, because you can write programs that have branches, like decision branches, and they do different things based on what is being done, what you've decided. So that's what makes it very versatile in terms of its utility. Like, you can do very many things with the terminal and bash. Like, you can basically write programs that can do virtually anything that you want them to do, and which is what people actually have been doing for the last few decades, actually. Because bash, I think it's about 40 years old, if I'm not mistaken. It has a lot of uses, and if you try and compare bash to, let's say, like Python or something, yes, Python can also do scripting and can also do like higher level programming, but in terms of learning, like as a foundation for your programming, I highly recommend that you learn bash and how basically it works, because you can develop a sense for what a program can do, and how you can make that program do things. So once you have like a better understanding of like how to write a for loop, if-else statements, how to build arrays, how to call those arrays and manipulate files, then now you can say, okay, if I can do this in bash, maybe I can also do the same thing in, let's say, Python or C or whatever you want to use. So terminals are a good starting point if you want to get into programming. In fact, most people say that once you start on Linux, you'll find yourself gravitating towards programming at some point. Sooner or later, you will get there. It's not for everyone, and that's true. Like, you don't have to necessarily go that far, but there is a lot of support once you start developing your skills on the terminal to easily transition to becoming a programmer. Okay, I think that's enough of that. So now let's get into some gripes that I have with bash. One major one is as when I was learning, I had a major issue in terms of typing in commands and understanding what they're doing. So like, I could type like, let's say ls, and it worked. Then I come the next day and I say, what's that command that I was running? Was it LA? And I had to like go back into like looking at previous commands. Like it wasn't easily sticking, basically. Like recalling, I had to rely on going back, like going through past commands and be like, oh, okay, I think this is what I was running, and I press enter. That's okay. Because yes, it's a learning process, but when you start working with for more commands, like when you start getting like beyond the basic commands, and there are I think there are roughly like 10 of them, it gets very tricky to recall correct commands, especially especially when it gets to typing things out like into pipe statements, which I'll do a video on, because it's a major point for Linux. That's pipes. You can read on it if you want, but I'll cover it as a separate video. So back to my challenges. Now, when you say ls, for example, then now I went into learning about options in each command. Each command does have options, and they are listed like this. This was also a major pain point because you can imagine, like, this is my first time doing it. I don't know what format, escape, or dereference or any of this meant, and there's no real like explanation. So it's like it's for you to figure out by reading the man pages, which can be they are a bit hard to get into, to be honest, because some of them are written like you are born knowing these things. So those are a few minor issues. Let me not say major issues that I had with learning it, because some commands you don't know if they have switches, or you don't know if they have options, like you just don't know, and it doesn't like encourage you to show you that yes, the command that you have typed so far is correct, and this option has this explanation attached to it. These options are part of this program. So an easy way to get around this, and I'm glad that I came across this early on, because this was something that I was really struggling with, is that you can use another program called Fish. Fish is a shell, just like Bash, but it's called a friendly interactive shell, and that's the full name of it. And once you use Fish, immediately you can just see like the difference. Like, for example, you see the user is highlighted. It highlights where you are. It shows you. It just basically gives you color, just for you to like know, just to highlight like important information. And like, for example, like let's say ls is green, so that means that it's a valid command. And if I say, let's say la, or let's say l and then a, like that's sort of valid command, so it makes it red. So this was really good because it really helped me understand what was happening on the terminal. Another thing that I really liked about it was if you type ls and you say dash, I ran this earlier, but if you press the tab button, by the way, tab is for tab completion. When you press tab, it'll list for you the options, which is like this now. Really, this is now how I learned how to use a terminal and the Fish shell properly, because it shows you what each command does. And if you scroll up and down, you can also tab. It'll give you the options. You can say, oh, so this is what this does, like use color, okay, print author, fine. So once you do that, and then you say, let's say loop, let's say what, downloads or desktop, okay, I don't know what the author does, but you can see it highlights for you correct inputs, and like, okay, this is so far what I'm writing is valid. And like it really gave it really boosted my knowledge of the terminal. So Fish shell, if you want to install it, you can do sudo dnf, which is the package manager, install Fish, and once you install it, which I've already done, it'll you can now run it by typing Fish in your terminal. Later on I'll show you how to make this like a default. Like once you open a terminal, it should just default to the shell, to Fish shell. But for now, just every time you open a terminal, just type Fish. Fish, and and you should be able to get to where you're going. Now, sometimes the default Fish installation is not that nice. So what you can do is like type Fish config. I've also run this command before, that's why you saw it highlighted a bit. Once you run this command, it should open a browser, and in that browser you should be able to edit. This browser, it's running locally, so it doesn't require internet. So yeah, you can see that you can change how your default colors are, and what I recommend, as you can see here, is to click this and to make it green. These ones that are highlighted, you can also make this into green, and then to change this into red, because this speech mark, you can make it red. This is what will show you the errors when you're typing. And you can also maybe change the suggestion color if you want to something that maybe stands out more, maybe is a bit more subdued. And then you say set theme. Once you set the theme, you'll see it running through the settings until you come back to your browser, theme set. So now you can close this and you can press enter and it will go away. Then also I think I can change the prompt. I like the arrow, but maybe you want something else. Maybe you want something that gives you that $ notation, or maybe you want something that's more technical looking. Maybe you're a simple guy, you want something like this. So yeah, you have choices. Personally, for me, I like simplicity, but if you're learning, I would recommend something that can maybe give you error messages, or something of the sort. Like let's try this one, and then now we can set it here as well. Prompt set, so you can close this, and when you come back you just press enter, and that's it. So as you can see, my terminal has changed. So I mean my command prompt has changed. So basically I highly recommend using the feature in terms of you learning how to navigate and do stuff on the terminal. These colors really make a difference. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, and when you can also, even when you type, like, let's say dash and then D, you can still tab and you can get all the options. Or if you feel like D is enough, just press enter. And that's about that. Like, I think the command, one of them is ls dash, is it dir? Dir directory. Okay, fine. Yeah, so you see, like, even the feedback in terms of when you get something wrong, is Bash will not give you that. Bash is very, like, you have to know what you're doing basically. So highly recommend Fish. Like, you can't stress that enough. I think maybe the last thing that we can go over is what else can I discuss that I feel like I haven't covered? Basically, okay, maybe we can do quick commands. Let's just do that. So far I've seen me use cd. Cd means change directory. If you want to go forward, you just do that. If you want to go back, you can do that. We also have ls. Ls is for listing stuff. Okay, that's basically straightforward. And you can do like ls dash l. Is it a? Yeah, ls dash la will give you, basically it'll give you all the options that you want. But yeah, it'll list everything including dot files, which are hidden files. Yeah, that's that. What else can we do? pwd is a print working directory. It just shows you where you are. pwd again, that's basically that. Maybe we can also talk about how to make files. You can do that with a command called touch. Touch on its own is a command for updating files, but if you give it a file name without anything really in it, it'll create that file for you. It'll be empty because if you cut out that file, it's empty. Cut is for reading files. Like if you have a text file that you want to read, you can quickly cut it. If you have several text files, you can cut, and you can cut all of them at the same time, and you'll read them. So that's very nice. Echo command. Echo is for repeating, just basically that. Echo. Oh, I don't like this color. I think I should change this I'll change that in the config. If you find that you cannot see something against your background, always change it, because yeah, it's good to see what you're doing basically. Where were we? Yes, so you can echo, which is good, and you can also echo into a file, and if you cut out that file, you've written to it. So yeah, this is a redirection, and redirections are also important. I'll just show you one or two ways. If you use redirect and you change, let's say this to, this is a new line. When you do it with a single redirect, it'll overwrite whatever you had in that file. If you want to append, you do it twice. So double greater than sign will append. Yeah, so more on that, like that's very useful, especially when you're like editing config files. You just want to quickly echo like a line into a specific config file without going there, opening it, and and writing things out. Just quickly redirect. It's very nice. The next command that maybe we can look at is what? Let's say you want to read a file from that's in a different location. So you see, right now I'm in my home, but we created that file on the desktop. You can send a command to that location by simply just typing out the full path. So you can say cat home Linux desktop file. Yeah, so you don't have to physically go there, and you can do this across your entire system. Like this, you can basically just swing. It's like swinging on vines basically through your whole system. And notice that there was also tab completion. Like you can tab all the way, and or you can also use the direction keys on your keyboard to go to wherever you want. And yeah, so that's more or less. I don't want this to be longer than half an hour. I know we've covered a few commands, but what I can advise you to do is to practice those commands whenever you want to, like, especially the any command basically. You can do pwd and check if it has any options. Just read through this text, like it helps a lot. You can also do like for anything, like let's say cat, does it have any options? Yeah, just read through them just to have a rough idea of what is being said. It'll help you develop a sense of what options you want to run the command with. So next time we'll be looking at not advanced, we'll just pick up where we left off with more commands, more ways to do things on the terminal. And maybe I can give you one example of how, I'll show you at that point, one example of how a terminal is better than a GUI. So look forward to that, and I hope you've learned something today. See you next time.